1 minute, Corey. Thank you and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting for January 13th. Councillor Brennan was slated to chair. Unfortunately, he's ill tonight, so we have regrets from him. Also, I expect that because of the flooding on the Mississippi that our Councillor McGuire might be a little bit late, and we are expecting Councillor Dwyer anytime. With that all being said, are there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, any disclosure of monetary interest? Seeing none, we will welcome our old friend Peter Au from the RIDEAU Paddlefest RIDEAU Roundtable to give us an update on the activities of those groups.
Thank you very much.
Peter, can you turn your mic on? Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to come and give a report and update to share with you what has happened in Paddlefest 2019 and what will be coming up in 2020, as well as a couple of updates from the roundtable. I should perhaps mention that there are a lot of stuff that we do actually are quite in line with the long-term vision and strategic priorities, okay? So we'll point it out as we go along. So perhaps some of the quick highlights of the 2019. Oh, sorry. I was using the wrong mouse. Right. Well, we had 6 teams last year in racing. But the significant thing is we get the town of Perth in. Again, with Smiths Falls, a strong team, right? And we also have beyond the 200-meter race, which anybody can do. There's a tougher one, 500-meter, okay, in the afternoon. And we have about 90 paddlers, and take 90 times 4. So that's the number of people they bring in. Perhaps also very significantly, we have added more to the cultural aspects. Now, part of the things that the town actually wants to do is to make use of what we have cultural-wise as part of our asset to develop tourism and so on and so forth. So along that line there, last year we started something new. In February, we started a short playwright contest, and from there, we created 2 short plays focusing on the RIDEAU Canal period, but with emphasis on young people. In fact, the 2 short plays, the RIDEAU vignettes, out of the 20 players we have, 13 actually were teenagers. So that shows you the emphasis we have. Okay. We also have locals like the Shaw Sisters, and there is a second time they perform. And the RIDEAU Voyagers is a group of a cappella singers made up of the Guyanese and the French, and so they have been singing in AGMs and so on, but they do sing genuine Voyager songs. One other thing that we have done is in order to attract more people in and get people to focus more what they see, we have a photo contest in collaboration with Lyon County Camera Club. And this year, all the winners are from out of town. So if you want to attract tourists, well, there's a proof of that, okay? Those are the 2 winning photos. I like the contrast. We have strong educational exhibitors. Murphy's Point always bring the snakes around, and they are so popular with kids. And the RIDEAU actually this year, last year they did something new. They used pedal power to make the drinks, and lots of interest. And the aquarium is a new attraction. They are in Brockville, but they bring in and introduce the highlights of the activities. Paddling puppeteers is probably among the most attractive performers for young people, and you always see a crowd of youngsters for them. And of course, we have Canadian Museum of Nature, the town of Smiths Falls, and Thousand Island National Park. Now, Thousand Island National Park is starting to explore using Voyager canoes as part of their tourism attraction, and we have been assisting them. So very quickly, look at what is coming up this year. Well, in fact, right after Paddle Fest, because of one of our co-chairs to move out from the area, the trailer he used to store all the material would have to not be available. And luckily, the community came up and with this support. So now, we don't have 3 new trailers. We only got 1, just 3 images of them. But they actually were raised after, all the funds were raised after Paddle Fest to the tune of $5,000. Then you add the signage and so on, it's about $6,000. Now, remember last year we started with 2 RIDEAU vignettes, and but it was only performed once. And we have a local playwright, and we have a playwright from Ottawa who's got very strong background in performance. She's a retired music teacher. In fact, she said her largest concert was 3,000 people, involving 300 before. So we were looking at, well, how if we use the RIDEAU CANAL players instead of the change name, okay, and add music, dance, and so on. So when we do that then, it now becomes the RIDEAU CANAL Heritage Show. So this is what we will be having. And in fact, we will be adding clockers, guitars, and we will have actually 3 performance lineup already in June. First is the D-Day special commemoration that's going to be in the Legion on June the 6th, and then Paddle Fest on June the 13th. And lastly, the last performance in June will be in the National Arts Center. Okay. And also thank you very much too to the support of the Legion. We get some funding that will assist us to do this. And we are changing the schedule. This is just one of the proposed changes. And you may see that there are things that you say, oh yeah, how about you change this and so on. Yeah, we're wide open to suggestions, okay? So, but the idea is we want to confine all the racing in the morning so that we will have a full hour of entertainment featuring the RIDEAU CANAL Heritage Show. And then, along with the strategy and the desire to improve on relationship with neighboring municipalities, we're going to have a VIP tug of war in a Voyager canoe. Okay? So that means everybody is the same canoe, and for safety reasons, they just sit opposite each other and paddle hard to see which one can push the other one. Okay? And we will have a mayor's race. Now, that Strutters, who is the chair for the RIDEAU strategy plan, would be happy with that one there. And hopefully, after they've done this and they've seen the show, they'll be interested. So this is moving forward to get more municipalities involved. Okay. We also have other paddling demonstrations and voyager canoe rides and so on. So, this is on the lower left-hand corner. You actually see our first trial of voyager canoe tug of war. Safety-wise, there's no ropes to break and so on, right? So, and also here is a quick schedule of what we think could be achieved if we get the racing started early, okay? And we're going to invite more of our groups coming in. In fact, at this point, 1090 National Park saying that, yeah, we're in, as well as Parks Canada and RIDEAU Valley Conservation Authority, and so on, yeah. We are also going to try to increase the variety of food and feature some of the best in Smiths Falls. Okay? And we will be featuring and inviting some paddling business. Some of the old-timers are going to be back here. Now, then the question is, why is Paddle Fest unique? I think it's unique here is not just based on racing, because we place equal emphasis on culture, nature, and most importantly, engagement. Okay? So we want to make more people aware of the assets we have. In fact, the photo contest is divided into two divisions, adults and youngsters. So you guys can be champions. What Paddle Fest brings to Smiths Falls is our exhibitors who we do the selection based on their type of activities appropriate with our mandate, and are they engaging? And that is, the engagement part is very, very important. It's through the engagement that people feel that they have fun, they learn something new, and they find that, no, I want to be here next year, or wanting to participate. And hopefully, we will have the Paddle Fest after the mayor's race and so on, and the team participate as well. Can we have that in our municipality? So we could have Paddle Fest move up and down the RIDEAU waterway in a way to try to build the RIDEAU as a paddling destination and bring in more of appreciation, tourism, and so on. For the round table, we are doing three things that are kind of new. I think Jennifer and Becky suggested, hey, look at the experiential tourism, both from Ottawa and Airbnb. So we actually were working on those two, okay? And a new program that we thought, if we really want to build up the paddling community and build more ambassadors for Smiths Falls and the region, is to start the Young Voyager program. Now, basically, it is an engagement program to introduce young people to environmental stewardship, alongside with culture, heritage, and so on, through teamwork, physical activities, and a lot of engagement learning. And we are working closely with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, WAC, and a couple of churches. And our intent is to apply for a $1 trillion grant so that this would become an experiment and you can improve in it. Started in Smith Falls, up and down the whole waterway. Okay, so with that then, I think my 10 minutes is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thanks for coming. And Peter has engaged several of us on over the course of several years to participate in RIDEAU Paddle Fest. It's always been fun. It has brought out some of the town's competitive spirit that we saw on full display last summer. So I look forward to this year, as I'm sure we all do, and some of the things that you've told us about are a little bit exciting. Any other questions? Yes. Student Councillor Lee.
Not a question. I would just like to say this looks like a really great event, and I also really appreciate how much you're gearing towards young people and how you're trying to make it really appealing for our youth population in town. And I just would like to say I'm really looking forward to attending this and seeing how the day goes.
Great. Come and participate. In fact, the high school is going to be part of that. And in fact, I think your Life and Sound group has always been supportive. And in fact, we also will be at powwow as well. The Voyager can do it. Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Peter, for the presentation. That was really interesting. One of the things you added for this year's lineup is clogging. Is there a history of significance behind clogging on the RIDEAU?
I suppose this is because a lot of immigrants from Ireland, and I was told this is just part of their thing, and that is why they can easily merge that clogging portion into the play. Right, yeah, yeah. And hopefully we'll see more of that, right?
Councillor Allen.
Yes, when our Irish visitors were here, remember they were clogging in the park, and they got all of us up, and we tried to keep up with them, but it's a really fun dance, and your event is always wonderful, a great success. And perhaps, now that we know there's interest, we should have a council boating team. There's enough of us.
Well,
Council staff, voting team. How many
had one
people on a
last year.
boat? Did you have one last
15,
year? Did you win?
yeah.
Almost.
Okay, well, this year to the win.
Right, yeah, right, yeah. And,
Thank you, Peter.
yeah, great. I'm
any
also
other
want to say that we have our treasurer coming to support me, and no, he put together the PowerPoint. I didn't. Okay, right. Thank you very much.
Credit where credit's due. Thank you, Peter. Okay, adoption of minutes. So, next on the agenda is the adoption of minutes for Monday, December 16th and Monday, January 6th, the Committee of the Whole. Councillor Dwyer. Moved by,
Yeah. No, sorry, I was
by Councillor McKenna. All in favor? Thank you. CAO, are there any directors from your group?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Seems there's just one tonight, and that would come from this microphone. Wanted to briefly advise committee about next week's Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference in Toronto. I attended a meeting of the Eastern Ontario Mayor's Caucus on Friday, and we're finalizing a delegation, a multi-ministerial delegation. We'll have the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. We'll have the Economic Development Minister and the Parliamentary Assistant for the Ministry of Health in that meeting. And I won't go into detail, but we have three broad kind of subjects that we want to cover. One is health and the reform that's happening in healthcare. That includes both the Ontario Health Teams, the paramedic service, and public health. All affect municipalities, of course. The second subject area is housing affordability. We've heard lots about that. There's a particular emphasis on Bill 108 and some of the clarity that needs to be brought to tools that we'll have in our toolbox to make housing affordable. And the third one's economic development. We have a couple of items in that area that we're looking at, workforce development being one of the big ones. With economic prosperity comes difficulty in not only finding people, but skilled and trained people. Cornwall is a good example. They're busing people from Quebec to fulfill their local workforce needs, so that's obviously not sustainable. Other communities are experiencing the same thing. And the other part of that that's of particular interest to this council would be the OMPF funding. We know we got a reprieve for 2020. We do not have any indication of what that's going to look like in 2021 and beyond, so we're going to be pressing for some details, or at least an opportunity to be present when the future of that program is discussed. So that'll be the focus for that one. So perhaps I'll pause there and answer any questions.
There don't appear to be any.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So, we'll deal with correspondence items then. The first is the letter from the Stewardship Ontario dated December 31st regarding industry funding for municipal blue box recycling for the third quarter of the 2019 program year. And did anyone have any? Councillor McKenna.
Just perhaps through you to the CAO, it doesn't say anything other than if you want to learn more, go to their website. Was there something, does it specifically say how much money Smiths Falls would get from that program somewhere?
Through the chair, oddly, it doesn't say that. You're quite right. There is a figure. I'm looking at our director to provide that figure, but while he's approaching the mic, I will say, as I do quite often when we get these quarterly notices, that I would question the statement that it's 50% of the total net cost. It's not. It's more like 41 or 42% of the total cost. That may be irrelevant if we move towards the full producer responsibility that the province is working towards, but I think it's worth noting we do not get 50% funding on the Blue Box program.
Through the chair, the correspondence, once you do research the web, it affirms that we are going to receive $68,549 for the 2019 fiscal year, which of course ends March 31st of 2020 for the provincial. So, and that is as reflected in the 2019 budget.
Councillor McKenna.
So is that, you mentioned a quarterly letter. So is that the quarterly installment or is that the annual?
Through the chair, that's the annual installment. We receive 4 quarterly payments of $17,137.
Thank you.
And I have a question as to why do they say 51% if it's only 41%, and why are they saying that, and should we be getting more?
So good questions. So they say that because there's an arrangement with the Ontario Newspaper Association where they provide in-kind contributions. So we get so many lines of space in newspapers in Ontario, and they've attached a value of about $6 million to that. That's not real subsidization. It's simply an in-kind contribution that the industry states is worth $6 to $7 million. There's also so that would be the bulk of the disparity between what we actually get and what is reported.
So I'm sure that someone's pointed out to them that that's not exactly clear, and taking 9% and the industry deciding that the value of that is $6 million is a little questionable.
Yeah, so I would answer that by saying that AMO has been very consistent in their position that this does not represent 50%. And again, I think with the shift in focus on full producer responsibility, we've identified this. I can tell you there was a court challenge over the amount that municipalities were getting. And we were somewhat successful in that court challenge as Ontario municipalities. But we're really looking forward to the new regime and not spending so much time debating the one we have today. But I think it's important for council and the taxpayers to understand that taxpayers are still subsidizing recycling to a great extent.
Any other questions on this subject? No. Then we'll move on to 6B, letter from Mr. Vincent Hamilton dated December 18th regarding letter and petition, and that document is available for viewing in the clerk's office if anybody wishes to review it. Next, I will ask for a motion to go in camera. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Dwyer. All in favor? We excuse us. I don't think it's a lot on the agenda, so hopefully we won't be too long. Thank you for your patience and welcome Councillor Dwyer, who's Councillor McGuire. We gotta change that seating. McGuire, Dwyer. So the rise and report coming out of our in-camera session is that we will be adding 8G to our priority issues regarding a purchase of property by the town. So we'll deal with that when we get to it. Moving right along, priority issues 8A is the 2020 community donation allocations report. Director of Corporate Services, Carrie Castell, is going to walk us through that.
Thank you. So as council is aware, every year we have a municipal grant application process. It closed November 30th. Applications were received and they were evaluated through our staff evaluation committee, which is comprised of CAO Morris, myself, Director Manhire, and Manager Miller. So we had 20 applications submitted for the first round in 2020. As you are aware, we use 1% of the tax levy to come up with the what we are going to set aside for our municipal grants. This year we had that gave us a total of $142,000. In total, we had asks that just reached approximately $181,000 was the asks of everything combined. So staff met on 2 or 3 occasions to evaluate all of the applications that were received. On your report this evening, you will see what organizations requested funds through the town, if they requested money in 2019, what they requested in 2020, as well as what the evaluation committee's recommendation is. So I'm not sure if you wanted to go through these one by one, or if you just wanted to go on question basis, but happy to do whatever council wants to do.
I think you have, in your analysis, Carrie, you've given 3 points there that were, I think, of particular interest. And my colleagues on council, with regard to those 1, 2, and 3 in the analysis, were there any concerns or questions regarding them? The Smiths Falls Food Security Advocacy Group request, the University Hospitals Kingston's Foundation request, and the Cornerstone Landing Youth Services request. Did you have any questions or concerns with what the analysis by staff? Councillor Dwyer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I think staff's recommendation is valid. I have no problem accepting it. I did have one question about one grant on the table, but besides that, I'm ready to accept the table as presented by staff.
Okay. Does the rest of council feel similarly? Councillor McKenna?
Yeah, I feel similarly. I did want to comment on the hospital foundation request and the overall healthcare. I mentioned that I was applying for this Association of Municipalities Health Task Force. They are full. There's no vacancies. But I think whatever, and I support the staff's recommendation that we develop some sort of way of looking at healthcare facility donations broader than they're coming at us one at a time, and trying to figure out a policy around that. And I would suggest when we get to that point that we work with our AMO partners, because this is something the municipalities across Ontario have identified. It's over $2 billion coming from the local ratepayers, to not here in Smiths Falls, but across Ontario, to support healthcare. And so I think that broader view is good, and I'm pleased to see that. I don't know when we'll get to it, maybe before the next community grants, and if that might mean that we defer any other requests until after we have that policy in place. But I'm pleased to see that in there, and I fully support it.
Mayor Panko?
Yeah, I'm encouraged by the results of the staff analysis. And if we go back a few years ago, for Councillor Nell and I, who have been here, I guess going on in our 10th year now, the decision on community grants was very difficult every year, and it was probably somewhat political, and we were hashed around here for hours as to who would get what and how much. And so we developed a policy, and I think it's responsible of council to really follow recommendations of staff. We develop a policy, they implement the policy, and take every request as it relates through the policy. And so I support the recommendation, and I'm also encouraged by the fact that there's still roughly $40,000 left in the fund for other requests that could come forward later this year. So I think it's a good job and a good step forward.
Any other comments, questions? I just, with regard to the CIP, I just would remind people that there are still funds available for the community improvement facade work. If there are individuals, businesses out there that there is still money available for some of that. Sorry, Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you. Sorry, I don't think we're talking about the CIP. No? Okay, you caught that too. Okay. The only grant that I noticed looked to be new that we hadn't received before, and we will now be supporting, was the Rideau Lakes Amateur Radio Club. And I just wondered if the director could elaborate a little bit on what the organization is and what the funds will be used for.
So the Rideau Lakes Amateur Club is an amateur radio club here in Smiths Falls. They've been here for many, many years. They actually form part of our emergency plan. So if communications were to go down, that's the group we would rely on for communications. They have not put their name forward in the past. Recently, I think it was 2018, they left the Beckwith Street location where they had been housed for many years. And they're trying to find, I think they're finding a new establishment somewhere for the club. And if I'm not mistaken, they're looking to relocate the radio repeater at the Railway Museum. So that's what the funds will be used for from their previous Beckwith Street location.
And so if we have consensus on that, that's $102,971,000 that will be distributed to these people out of our 142 that's available. Did I read that right, Director Costello?
So if the allocation without the hospital ask.
That's right.
Would be $92,838.20. And that excludes, like I said, the hospital donation.
Yeah, your last line says 102,971.
Oh,
excluding the University Hospitals
my
Kingston Foundation.
apologies, Councillor Alfred. I'm looking at one I made my own notes on.
Okay, but it does include the Cornerstone.
Yes.
Once they have undertaken some of the work that they need to do.
Yes,
to
confirmation
prepare.
of a federal grant.
Okay, so we have consensus and you have your direction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to talk about the CIP funding. The CIP funding application for 10 Beckwith Street South report, that's with Senior Planner Granke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm just bringing forward a recommendation from the Community Improvement Plan Evaluation Committee for funding roughly $1,400, which represents 50% of the cost of a new fascia and projecting sign at 10 Beckwith Street. That's that's the Michelle's Doorway to Splendor. She's looking to, Michelle Bately, the tenant, is looking to replace the existing wall sign with two new signs. They're going to be wood paneled with gold trim. The Community Improvement Plan Evaluation Committee was quite enthusiastic about this application, as it represented a small-scale improvement on the facade. Just as a note, the sign itself, as presented, does not comply with the sign bylaw in terms of the projection. It projects a little bit further onto Beckwith Street, and also the height exceeds what. Or the height is less than the minimum required by the bylaw. The Public Works Department confirmed that there still is sufficient room to maneuver underneath to conduct winter maintenance under the sign along Beckwith. So as a sidebar, staff are working on refreshing the sign bylaw, but this is how it is right now. So the committee was recommending that as a condition of the funding approval, that the applicant either construct the sign as per the bylaw or obtain approval by the Committee of Adjustment by the Committee of the Whole as per our normal procedures for getting variances for signs. So the committee's recommendation on this was unanimous. I'd also like to, I'm not sure she's here anymore, but acknowledge our Coordinator of Economic Development, Becky Allen, as well as Planning Coordinator Mary Remig on the work that they've done in liaising with the proponents. So at this point, given that the ask is less than $4,000, the approval authority has been delegated to the committee. However, a funding agreement still needs to be approved by council. So I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you, Councillor Dwyer.
Thanks. I have no problem approving it. I think it's great. I am a little disappointed knowing who the applicant is, that it's not a little bit more funky, I guess is kind of what I was expecting. But if this is what Michelle wants, then I think it's great. Carl, can we not just pass a resolution granting the variance for the projection when we pass the agreement to expedite this?
With the variance for the sign bylaw.
Correct.
I will let the clerk speak to that.
Yeah. Oh, variances are done by bylaw? Okay, can we grant a bylaw to approve this? Yeah. There's no statutory process, is there? No.
So,
I think Madam Clerk is thinking.
so while the clerk is thinking, I think, we have consensus to execute the funding agreement for the application, articulating the terms and conditions of the release of funds. So we have consensus on that. Now we just need to know whether we can do a bylaw to make an exception for the increased projection over Beckwith Street.
That's correct. So.
And you have already checked with Public Works to say that it wouldn't interfere with snow removal.
That's correct.
Okay. And Councillor Allen?
I'm fine with that as well, and this is one of my favorite stores. I think it's a wonderful little store that's a vital part of our downtown. I just wanted to talk to you in regards to, I'm not on the CIP committee anymore, but at the time I was, we had looked at the possibility of having some examples of heritage wooden signs, their size, and how they fit with the space that they're on. And I love Michelle's sign, but it seems tiny in regards to the amount of space that she could have used for a bigger sign. And I'm just wondering if that has been done, or are we still just letting people kind of go with their own ideas? And
Through the chair, our Economic Development Department did recently produce a brochure outlining some best practices and a few examples of really nice signs that we're trying to encourage. And certainly this is one that could potentially go on a future one. So the scale is the Photoshop design that they provided is I'm not sure it is exactly to scale. The measurement for the sign is 2 feet by 12 and a half feet, so it's a reasonably sizable sign. I'm not sure the width of the property, but I can't guarantee that the scale as shown on Appendix B is.
she also talked about lighting. I think in this, doesn't it talk about overhead lighting?
Yes.
It did, but she wasn't prepared to pull the trigger on that yet.
Oh, I see. So they would be added at a later point, you think? Or?
I'm assuming.
Okay.
But I'm assuming the CIP committee's got their hands around this.
I don't know, we have someone on the committee, maybe he could speak to this.
Can you shed some
Through
light,
the chair right
Councillor
now,
Dwyer?
right now we're working on reviewing the application criteria, and I think the facade renovation stuff is on track to be forwarded to council for a look over before we put it into stone. And I think after that, economic development's got these great pamphlets to hand out, and it's really, the more we can coach the applications before they even submit anything to the town, the better. It catches it ahead of time. And I think we're definitely moving in the right direction on that, but I agree with Councillor Allen too.
Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you. Madam Chair, without putting words in the clerk's mouth, and I'll look for her to nod if I get this right, yes, council could pass a variance to sign bylaw to allow reprojection and height. And height? Height of clearance of the projecting sign? Okay, but we could pass a bylaw, so if committee supports this, then that bylaw could come forward at the next council meeting? Not tonight, next week, and you guys can figure out the wording? Perfect.
Okay, so we have consensus over the recommendation by staff, and the Director of Corporate Services, the clerk, will ensure the right wording comes forward on the 27th to allow for the sign projecting, or not complying with the current sign bylaw.
Correct.
Okay. Got it. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you. So to confirm my direction, we have the authorizing bylaw on the table for tonight for the funding
Other
agreement.
funding, yes, and the exception for the sign will come up at the 27th.
Great. Thank you.
CAO Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The CIP program is due for its 5-year review this year, I believe. So that might be an appropriate opportunity to talk about developing design guidelines of some sort around this type of thing, because the committee simply looks at the application, and as long as it doesn't contravene the spirit and intent of the program, we approve it. So there really isn't an opportunity for subjectivity. We've identified examples that can be used by landowners, but we haven't developed design guidelines. So that may be a conversation at the point of review of the program, if there's an appetite to do so.
Well, I'm going to leave it to somebody who's currently on the CIP to see if they have that attitude, they have that desire to revisit that. I'm looking at Councillor McGuire to take that back to his committee. And I believe Councillor McGuire has that desire, so we'll look forward to some more discussions surrounding a revisit of the CIP program that will be driven by the committee. Okay. Now, because I lost track when I ABC'd my agenda for tonight, I want to go back to the fact that we are approving the funding for 10 Beckwith Street tonight, but I want to remind business owners and individuals that we have nearly $60,000 left in this program to help them upgrade their facades as well. So it's matching funds up to $10,000. So that should, for those watching or interested in that, I encourage you to reach out to probably our Economic Development Office at the Welcome Center can guide you in the process that you would need to undertake to access some of those funds. And I would love to see something all downtown like the brochure that they have currently handed out, because it's lovely. And if we could give that to Councillor Dwyer. Okay, moving on then to finalizing the 2020 budget report. Treasurer Koziel, we're so excited. I'm glad to hear it's not just me.
So
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I am here this evening to present the final third draft of the budget. And as presented, it reflects operational expenditures of about 24.3 million, transfers to capital reserves at 2.9, and revenue sources of about 28 million. So a summary of some of the changes from the second to the third draft. Staff were directed to revise to increase the implement and approve water and wastewater rate increases for the CPI, which was 1.9, and that was the average CPI to the period ending October 31st. It has slightly risen to the end of November. It's 2%. Have not received December's as of yet. The other change that we were notified of was December 20th was the education rates have gone down. It is important to note that since 2008, they've either been status quo or marginally declining. So with that change, the average residential tax bill would decrease about $10.79 because of that. With inclusive of overall increase to the assessment, the average bill will increase about $14.09. And also in this, from the second to the third draft, is the Smiths Falls and Perth District Hospital donation of $174,000. And there were some changes to the capital budget to the approximately $300,000, but they're all projects that were not finalized in 2019, and they'll just carry over into 2020. So there's no impact to the reserves on that. So the if approved, the first and second reading will come forward this evening at a special council. So if you had any questions.
And so it begins. Councillor McKenna.
Just thank you, Director Cozile, for your work on this, and all the rest of the staff who've had input, and my colleagues. I think it's a good budget, and I will be supporting it. I do go back to the asset management plan, which really is a core piece that we have to consider as we develop our budgets. And I've raised this before, and if I could ask through the CAO, you've mentioned a couple of times about a refresh on our asset management plan, and I don't know if we're going to get to that in the next 12 months, that it could help inform next year's plan. But I'm very concerned that we aren't putting, with my risk management hat on, as we're responsible here at Council, ensuring that we're going to have resources down the road, future councils, to replace the infrastructure or repair it. And I am concerned that there's a gap in what we're putting away. And I understand that. I'm willing to pause until we update our asset management plan to really see how big of a gap it is. But in the next year, I would be continuing to talk to my colleagues about perhaps being a little more aggressive at closing the gap between what we need to put away for 10 and 15 years from now. And so I don't know if that, because that would be a key for me to do that, to support it next year.
C.L. Morris.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. It is an important one, and what I can say is we don't have resources in this budget, ironically enough, to update in a fulsome way the asset management plan. And the idea there, in an ideal world, as projects, as you knock them off the front, you add them on the back, and you always have a rolling 10-year stable of projects. So we continue to do that, but we need to do it in a more holistic way. What we are focusing on in 2020 is to, I'll use a really technical financial term, we're going to scrub the data we have to make sure, based on what we know now, the intelligence we've gathered, particularly on our linear assets, we're going to refine some of the projections. And I've mentioned this in the past, I think it's worth mentioning again. One of the principles or assumptions that was used in formulating the original asset management plan is that when we reconstruct a street, we remove the underground infrastructure and we replace it with new. That's a reasonable assumption, but not an entirely accurate one. There are pipe rehabilitation methodologies that Director Dunlop has not experimented with, he's used on streets. So we're going to take a much more detailed, we're going to comb through the data and understand where we can extend the life of an asset instead of replacing it. So that's going to be our objective, and we're going to bring in resources to help us do that. Once we are entirely confident of the accuracy of the data we have, then we need to figure out what's coming down the pipe in 10, 12, 15 years. So my projection is that would be a 2021 project, and we'll budget accordingly for 2021.
Thank you.
Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one point of clarification. Janet, on page 2 of the staff report, at the very, very top, it reads, "Note, this will result in annual decrease of $10.79 to the average residential tax bill, semicolon. Overall impact, in parentheses, inclusive of assessment increase, will be an overall increase of $14.09. Can you just clarify what you mean by that?
Sure. Because of the education tax rate, that is a decrease. So the bill went down $10. Just the municipal portion from increased assessment was $24.88.
Okay.
So you take away the $10.79, the net impact is going to be the $14.09.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So just to paraphrase, education took us down $10, but the increase in assessment took us up 24. The difference is 14. Okay. Mayor Panko.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad we've reached this point, I think, fairly quickly, and it's a lean budget, and I guess as I echo Councilor McKenna's comments, I mean, we've got a long-term financial sustainability plan which guides our decision-making and encourages us every year to put money into reserves, and really over the last 5 years, we've added to reserves, we've paid down debt to position ourselves to do some major capital projects like we are doing this year of almost $60 million in capital work. But I think it's important that we always keep in mind the need to continue to build reserves. We're drawing down this year more so, I guess, than we're adding to try to meet the work that we are doing while trying to bring in a tax rate, well, no change to the tax rate, but bring in a tax bill which is going to be acceptable to our constituents. And I think a $14 net increase for the average taxpayer in town is extremely modest. And if you look around municipalities throughout the area, most are quite a bit higher. I think Ottawa was about $100 average increase per home, and that's without some of the additional levies. So very modest, but I think a fair amount of work which is being completed and a number of projects which are being moved forward. So I commend staff on the work they did behind the scenes. We might spend a couple hours at this at a meeting a few different times, but we know staff are spending a lot more time behind the scenes trying to follow through with our wishes and our instructions. So I support the budget. I think it is that fair balance between what we deem to be affordable and at the same time trying to do the work we need to do. But like Councilor McKenna said, I think we definitely need to make sure that in future years we are ensuring that we are meeting our capital reserve requirements. And the growth we received this year has the growth in the new construction growth, I guess, which has really helped offset any need to increase the tax rate. This has really been the saving grace for our taxpayers. And just so, I guess, people understand as well, we've seen significant growth in the value of properties in town, especially residential property, and probably up, I think numbers I've heard are probably 40% over the last 5 years and even 20% over the past year. And we had a realtor speak at our Housing Task Force meeting this morning, and that trend is likely to continue. But homeowners need to realize that MPAC phases in growth and assessment, and we're still working on a previous assessment cycle. So the actual average increase in property value that's a homeowner will feel this year would be just under 1%. Jan, is that correct?
Pardon me, the overall assessment is 0.92.
Yeah, so under 1%. Even though they may have seen their home value rise 20% in the past year, for tax purposes, we're only working with about a 1% increase. So I support the budget.
And do you want to say something, Terry?
I did. So through the chair, just to give you, I try to work with the long-term financial plan and keep the ending balances in line. So we are, for the tax support, we're at 391, projected to the end of 2020. The plan called for 377. So we are slowly building that. The water is 788, and the plan was calling for 760. And the wastewater is 923, and the plan was not 865. So because of some of the grants, we are slowly building those up for projection for the end of the year.
C.O. Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the risk of throwing a damp blanket on this good news story, I do feel compelled to tell you that there are certain items in the 2021 budget that we're working on today that are a risk to the town. I mentioned earlier in my CAO's report the OMPF funding. That's probably our largest vulnerability. Some smaller ones that we need to keep an eye on would be the health unit funding formulas that are changing. So we being municipalities got a reprieve in 2020. I don't expect that same reprieve in 2021, so we are turning our thoughts to how we're going to manage some of those vulnerabilities moving forward. And I'd like to wrap that up by saying that's the importance of getting in front of MPPs and other provincial politicians so that they understand the impacts of those decisions in a very real way. And so we'll keep this council informed of any movement in that regard. But we dodged a bullet in this budget, but next year is going to be a new challenge.
Yes.
I meant to make a note to council that our OSIF formula-based funding has not been confirmed as of yet. I did reach out to a contact person, and he had indicated we should be hearing about that in the weeks to come. And it's currently projected at about $614,000. And further to CAO Morris, there is an OMPF technical working group that I sit on, and there is going to be a meeting on Wednesday. Obviously not going to be anything concrete, but it's a discussion on how we could move forward with this program. So.
Any other questions, comments? And if I'm not mistaken, oh, wait, wrong. This is going to, does this move forward tonight to first and second reading? Okay. So there is consensus to go ahead, yes. And I echo some of my colleagues' mentions as you're a valued guide through this, particularly for some who are doing this for the first time, Janet, so I really appreciate that. Okay. Tourism, year in review, 2019 report, and Ms. Miller is up.
Thank you. So one of the key priorities in our current strategic plan is to improve Smiths Falls as a tourism destination. And the goal is to attract visitors, to expand the local economy, and our department has been working to that end. So I'd like to actually welcome Becky Allen to council tonight. Becky's the coordinator of economic development and tourism, and she takes the lead with much of the tourism work for our department. You all know her well, but she will provide a brief overview of the team's tourism-related efforts in 2019.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm excited actually to talk about tourism for 2019. It was an awesome year, and it was a real pleasure to put this together. So, first of all, I just wanted to start by saying that tourism has emerged as a resilient economic driver with significant growth in Ontario, Canada, and the world. The impact of tourism is felt when tourist spending has a ripple effect through the community's whole economy, as it supports job creation, infrastructure development, and community building. Okay, so what is our role in tourism here at the town of Smiths Falls? First of all, really identifying what we have to offer. So you see that, it's identifying our assets. What are our experiences that make us unique as a community? And collecting all of those and essentially defining who we are. That also helps us decide what our visitor profile would be and what markets we would want to target, sort of see what we have to offer. Secondly, would be really looking at how can we elevate these experiences. Sometimes that means closing the gap, connecting linkages, connecting community partners with other partners, marketing, and also identifying the needs that we're missing, really looking at what don't we have and how can we attract that. Thirdly, how do we tell our unique story? So I'm sure everybody hears a lot about storytelling, and I think that's a really great, description. And one thing I definitely want to say is that one of the most important thing about telling a story is partnerships. And I mentioned here that collaboration with our community partners such as Lanark County Tourism, Lanark County Tourism Association, OTO, which is our provincial body of tourism, which is also called, we call it Ontario Highlands Tourism Organization, or RTO 11. So as well as your classic marketing storytelling opportunities such as print, creating guides and maps and distributing them, as well as the most kind of influential one we see now, which is social media and influencer tours, which is also part of social media. Okay, so firstly, what are our experiences? Essentially, what are our assets? So it's a big one, and I think everybody identifies that and knows that. Tweed let us know that they were just over 35,000 right about at the end of the year, which is a great number for their first full calendar year. That's really something that I think all of us are focused on, getting those individuals that are coming, those 35,000 to come into our town, to stay and to spend money basically and enjoy everything our town has to offer. With the anticipation of cannabis retail coming, as well as edibles, beverages, and everything else we're going to see from Tweed, we're really expecting 2020 to be something that we have all never seen before. The RIDEAU CANAL. The RIDEAU CANAL, this is some very interesting data. More than 6,000 boats, vessels, locked through our 3 lock stations here in Smiths Falls in 2019. And keeping in mind that that's vessels, not bodies, so, very rarely do you see a boat with one person on it. 700 plus pedestrian visits. Much of those would probably be, as we all see it, combined, because that's a very busy pedestrian lock station. And 3,000 plus visitors visiting the RIDEAU CANAL Visitor Information Center. LeBoat had an awesome second year. 310 departures. So they're still working to solidify their hard numbers of bodies, but typically they average around 6 per boat. So that gives you you can do a bit of math there. It's just not going to be like perfectly accurate. But what was really interesting is, as you can see, their new big boats here that are in this photo, they added 20% capacity, but still increased revenue by 41%. So great year for them, and also we don't want to overlook the media coverage and the impact that LeBoat has for us internationally. And they had some big TV shows this year, which is why you're seeing that, it's more than 20 million that their reach would be, and a lot of that was TV. So our museums, which we are so fortunate to have here in Smiths Falls. So Railway Museum has some really exciting things going on. So they had a 26% increase this year with over 10,000 visitors. They have some really great signature events. Train Fest, North Pole Express. They added a Harry Potter themed event this year that was a huge hit. Their overnight in the caboose increased by 200%. And this is their second year offering that Airbnb option. And they're just going to keep investing in that in the future, which is a really cool thing for us to have from an accommodation standpoint. I'm sure everybody knows about the new dining car, which is exciting too. So I think there's a lot of cool things coming down there. Heritage House did have a very small decrease, but keeping in mind that that's actually a very small number, which really could fluctuate from year to year. And Heritage House provides a lot more than just a tourist, attraction. That they're obviously a very valuable community service. They do a ton of very important cultural work. They also had some really amazing events this year: ghost walks, Haunted Heritage House, Historical Society, Speaker Series, Art Show, and Market Days. And they're looking to increase, they have some really cool things coming down for 2020, and I just urge you to keep an eye out for that. So I want to talk about some of our signature events. You're going to see 4 events up here, which obviously there's a lot more here in the town of Smiths Falls. I wanted to mention, of course, Smiths Falls Shindig, Live at the Falls, all the fantastic shows at the Gallipo Center, the Bustle on Russell, and the list really goes on for amazing events we have in Smiths Falls. These events, we're speaking for ones that we work on directly, whether they be owned completely by us or in partnership. So Powwow. Powwow is a 2-day event. Hopefully everybody here has had a chance to go. It is an amazing event. It's something we produce in partnership with SFDCI and the youth and our local Indigenous partners as well. And it's an incredible, beautiful event that celebrates our local Indigenous history here in Smiths Falls and important work in reconciliation. It's also just fantastic to be able to partner with youth and to have that sort of engagement piece as well. The Smiths Falls Triathlon, which is Canada's oldest triathlon. It's what we did for this year was what we could, working in partnership with the producers of that event. But what we did was, it's Canada's oldest triathlon. It's also, they're swimming in the RIDEAU Canal. It's really kind of a one-of-a-kind event. We helped them change the route this year so that they ran past Tweed just to include that other important asset, just to really make it kind of this cool, distinctive event. They put on a water station for them, which was really cool. And we gave out a lot of swag, and we got a lot of really positive feedback. We had live music at 2 different destinations. We just really elevated that event, and we're hoping to just really see it grow year after year. So Paddle Fest. It was great to see Peter's presentation on Paddle Fest. We look forward to working with them into 2020. Paddle Fest is an amazing event, like everything that Peter said about culture and everything, environment, but also it helps us engage with the waterfront. It brings life to the waterfront in a different location and that's ultimately another very important focus of ours. Doors Open, just wanted to mention that as well. This is a great community partnership that we all work together on. It brings in hundreds of people every year, and what's really exciting is I think we have some really great new locations coming for 2020. Probably people could speculate some of them, and I think it's really important to celebrate our heritage and our architecture and all of those things that our landscape tells a story of where Smiths Falls came from and why. So how can we elevate it? When we look at what we have to offer, it's important to look at what we have to foster growth. Destination development really speaks to this process and to develop Smiths Falls experience holistically. And I'm excited to tell you what we did in 2019. So I hope everybody got a chance to see the Outer Bridge Magic Show. It was incredible. I still remember the first day this pair came into the office and did a few tricks with Mayor Pankow, and we were like, wow, this is something. Like, we knew something was coming. So they did 10 sold-out shows. They had 1,300 attendees. Many of them came from out of town. Many of them ate dinner here. That was the direct impact, but also they did a ton of media. They had a really positive economic impact on the Station Theatre, and we got to have further develop our destination as a place for LeBoaters, stop, stay, see a magic show, and it just really sort of elevates the holisticness of Smiths Falls. So Rise Yoga and Wellness Festival. So we felt a gap coming with healthy living, and we took the opportunity to sort of take another event that would be aligned with health and wellness. And this had a lot of different focuses. Attracting visitors is the no-brainer, but also we wanted to develop a community, basically like a self-awareness that, we're a health-focused community, and focused on being outside, enjoying the waterfront, and also we're keeping those options open of how we can align with cannabis tourism in a complementary way for the town of Smiths Falls. So there wasn't specifically a cannabis element to this event, but just aligning with that natural health. The Heritage Walking Tour, and this is part of our tourism strategic plan, and we launched it this year with partners from the RIDEAU Trail Association as well as Railway Museum who helped us execute it. We did 12 walking tours. We always had people, some of them had almost too many to manage, and some of them were 4 people and things like that. But it was an awesome first year, and overall, people loved it, anybody that participated. And again, not only does it have that cultural importance, but it also gives people something to do while they're here. And I'm sure everybody saw our walking tour that we actually developed. So we did hand out a lot of these as well to sort of complement this walking tour. So Sip and Savor Trail. Sip and Savor is a partnership with Lanark County Tourism Association, who produced it, working with Lanark County Tourism and RTO 11. So just some quick data. This is a foodie trail that we participated in that goes all over Lanark County, but Smiths Falls has some great destinations. If anybody hasn't grabbed one of these, please feel free to do so. There's some on the table. For its first year, it just launched this year. The website, the data's up there. There's 25,000 visits to the website, and 10,000 maps were distributed. They're doing a reprint. All of those went out. The digital marketing campaign reached 375,000 people in the Ottawa market, which is our target market, day trip market. Social media was great, and it created valuable digital marketing content that we get to use as well. So it was really like a great opportunity for us to collaborate. So On the Roll got a little bit of a few changes this year, and we're happy to say we actually gave out all $25,000 by, it was very close to the 1st of October. So first year we've done that, and we funded more than 55 local events, and just had a huge community impact. And most of those applications, like many of them, were $100, $200, $300. Some of them bigger, and but it just really spread the wealth all through the community. Okay, so how do we tell the story? So this is essentially, working on marketing. How are we promoting the town of Smiths Falls? So these are some of our print ads we did this year. Probably most of you have seen them. Some of them were Edible Ottawa, 55 plus, which is a great little market for us this year. And we developed a new map for the inside of our visitor guide. And and we Hometown News, just promoting all those On the Roll events that we've been funding, and just showcasing all the awesome stuff we have here. So Facebook. We converted this fall On the Roll, the On the Roll Facebook page to Experience Smiths Falls, working with Lauren Sinclair as well on all of these initiatives. And we started adding the hashtag Experience Smiths Falls, and this as our tourism product, basically. Our following in 2019 increased by 56%. We created 4 Facebook events, so just 4, and we had almost 90,000 people were reached with those 4 events. 3.6 event responses, so there's people saying that they're interested or attending. And what I wanted to mention too is that that really speaks to our local community and how engaged they are, because that's them sharing that. That's really sharing, and that's how it has that big impact. Our most popular post on Facebook at Experience Smiths Falls was this post of Chef Ram, which had 3.7 thousand people reached, which was, again, speaks to the local community sharing that, because we didn't boost that. There was no dollar spent on this at all, so which is pretty cool. Instagram. So we relaunched the Instagram in March 2019 as a tourism-focused communication tool. We posted 105 posts in 2019 We grew from about 300 followers to over 1,500 followers, which is a 433% increase. Sorry, I had 1,000 there. That was a little bit too much. These are our two. I was accelerating. Overselling. Yeah, so these are our two most popular posts. Shindig and Pat from Bowie's. So it's a whole different market on Instagram than on Facebook, and it really gives us the opportunity to kind of do different stuff in different places, which is pretty cool. So now I just want to talk really quickly about a couple of our media tours that we did. So all of the media tours we did were in partnership. This one was awesome, actually. This came down from OTO and RTO 11. We partnered with Lanark County, RTO 11, and us to produce this. And basically, they came and they stayed in Smiths Falls for 4 nights and ate here and used it as a home base for snowmobile tourism. And they loved Smiths Falls, and they loved Lanark County, and they loved how whatever direction they went was something new. They gave us 8 Facebook posts, huge reach of a very engaged group, so it was great. Little Miss Ottawa this is an Instagram media tour that we were involved in. She came to Smiths Falls and went to 4 Degrees, and again, she has a big following and an Ottawa following, which is really awesome. Huge reach on social media, as well as she has a blog as well. So it was a great opportunity for us. And again, this one actually had no investment for us. This is just those collaborating with our partners. It's awesome. So looking into 2020, this is our tourism portion of our strategic plan. So just looking at what we have accomplished so far. So we have launched in 2019 the cannabis tourism strategy. The walking tour has launched this year as well, and we're looking forward to 2020. We are excited to focus on trails as well as continue to develop our RIDEAU CANAL experiential tourism products. Lots of exciting things coming down there. And we've already started some of the groundwork for the cycle tourism strategy, which I think is also going to be a huge asset to us. Our tourism webpage also launched late in 2019. And thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Becky? Councillor McKenna.
Thanks very much. A couple of comments. One, in the report, it was we're starting to see the results of the hard work of staff, because you achieved all 4 of the initiatives you had identified in our strategic plan, the work plan for the last year. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we'll see more, because I know everyone's just the focus of that plan, and it's great to see the deliverables, and that it's more than just ticking it off. You did them all well, so congratulations. I also see the return on the investment of developing in our communications expertise, the production of that particular slide deck and the other materials, the professionalism of it. How we tell our story and the quality of that is amazing. It's just first class, the communication, so congratulations there. And finally, I don't know if you can answer this, but do we know the impact of not having enough hotel accommodations on the surge that is continuing to grow? Do we know how are we losing people to surrounding towns? Because do we have a sense of that yet? The surge is continuing to grow, and I don't think we are. I think we're underbedded here.
I think we all feel that way. I think we would have more opportunities if we did have more accommodation options. But I think that sort of, in that identifying our assets, when we essentially we look at what we have and work with it. So we might have a different sort of focus of visitor profile if we did have more accommodation, so which actually dictates why we really focus on that Ottawa market of the day trippers, as well as a more senior day trip, which has proven to be sort of our bread and butter. But I think you could be right there. I think we would all love to see that, but I think I don't think people are necessarily turning away from us as much as maybe we're going after a different group of people, maybe.
Thank you.
Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Becky. I'm going to kind of echo what Peter said, but I mean, it's really refreshing to see that we've kind of finally upped our game. You know, this is we're functioning at a whole different caliber than we have been in previous years. And I feel like this is the first year that we're really, really seeing it. So kudos to you guys. I appreciate the diversity of targeted marketing that's being undertaken. We're not putting all our eggs in one basket, you know, and the breadth of exposure that you're getting, I think is reflective in what you see when you're walking around in the summer. You know, I think it's a wise strategic move, and I think a lot of that has to do with the individual who's leading this. And I hope you know that you've got the full support of council to do this. I did have a couple questions about the numbers that were in the report. The first one from Tweed was 35,000 visitors. Did that include the shindig? Do we know, or is that separate?
That's a good question. Excellent question. I would have to find that out for you.
Okay.
I would suspect it does, but I don't know that because it might be actually reflecting the actual visitor center.
Yeah.
So that would maybe reflect some of the shindig participants, but I know myself, I didn't go into the VC when I went to the shindig.
Right.
So it's possible.
Okay. And the 200% increase in bookings of the overnight and the caboose, do we know how many nights that actually equated to?
You know what? I believe the numbers that they gave me were in dollars. So they gave me $1, like what was 2018 in dollars and 2018 and 2019 dollars.
Okay.
So again, I can get that for you and find out because they would have that.
Okay, and just the last one, it's probably going to come with the same answer, but LeBoat made the change this year of introducing a launching point at Sealy's Bay. Do we know if the 310 departures were between those two locations, or was that the Smiths Falls location specifically?
I asked them specifically for Smiths Falls data. I'm going to clarify that just to make sure,
Yeah.
but I believe that was Smiths Falls.
Okay, because it
Yep.
would be nice to know kind of how operationally they're gearing their tourism, so that even if the boats are leaving from Sealy's Bay, that we're ensuring that they at least, you know, end in Smiths Falls, and that we can capture the ridership that way. But that's
Agreed.
it. Beyond that, I mean, amazing presentation, amazing years worth of work. You guys have really turned this place around. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Allen, and then CEO Morris.
I'm not going to say the same things over and over, Becky, but one of the things that I hear everywhere I go is on the roll, the appreciation of the events that have had your on the roll funding. Is that going to continue? Is that something that we're going to keep doing, or?
The On the Roll funding program, I believe it is part of the budget again.
That's great.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for the work you do. It's great.
CEO Morris.
Yes, just to follow up on one of Councillor Dwyer's questions, I just reviewed the Railway Museum's grant application form, and in it they state they accommodated almost 200 guests in 2019 in the caboose.
It's crazy.
And can I add,
Go ahead.
we've added cabooses, like that was just with our former number, but we also have 2 more cabooses that are going to be involved in it. So it's going to have, there'll be 6, I think, 6 rentals.
Mayor Panko.
Thanks, Becky, Jennifer, and the whole team that put it together. Well done. The other thing to remember here is the value this brings to our own residents. And if you take a lot of the events and experiences, the uptake is also people in our own community have the chance to go out and see our town in a different way and experience and enjoy some of the great things living in Smiths Falls. So the benefit isn't just exclusive to people visiting here. We all get to benefit from what's happening.
Any other comments, questions? I would just echo what a pleasure it has been to see this grow this past year, and I will tell you, I worked for the RIDEAU CANAL. I've been involved in the history of Smiths Falls in one capacity and other festivals and whatever, but I think one of the most exciting things that I learned this year was taking the walking tour. Saw and heard things I had not seen and heard before, And I would, that to me, as a resident, as someone who's been here for a long time, I didn't know that there was still more for me to learn. So thank you for that. And please keep that going, because that was really good. Any other questions, comments? No? Thank you, Becky, and thank you, Jennifer. Then we have moved on to lifting of part lot control plan 27M-83 Block 6 report 2020-05. All that should have allowed Mr. Granke time to get to the podium while I just read that out.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. This will just probably be a pretty quick report. It's an administrative process that we don't have a lot of experience on the lifting of part lot control. We've done a few over the years, but we're going to be repeating this several more times as the townhouse projects in Bellamy Farms continue to develop. So what we through the subdivision approval process, we created a series of blocks that are each proposed to be and under development for townhomes, and those blocks are all intended to be divided for freehold occupancy. So one of the and part lot control is often used in situations like this where you want to be extra sure where the property line is, the new property line is going down the party wall in the middle of right down the middle of the party wall. So oftentimes what you see is the construction will begin, at the very least the foundations will be poured, and then the lines are surveyed so that consistent and exact dimensions and areas and legal descriptions are created. So then we would pass a bylaw exempting the part lot control provisions of the Planning Act, allowing these individual parcels to be created. So this was envisioned through the planning process of the Bellamy Farm subdivision, and this is the first one we have on the subdivision. It's the final administrative process pending completion of the occupancy permit. So the recommendation of staff is that we pass a bylaw lifting part lot control, thereby allowing the division of these three lots.
Thank you, Mr. Granke. Any questions, comments? Councillor Allen?
Yeah, thank you, Carl. I just had a question. When I looked at the diagram that you included, the sections that you're speaking of seem much smaller than the others. Is that a problem, or is it? Are they usually a variety of sizes?
So in this case, the block that's through the chair, the block that's being divided right now contains three townhouse units. Most of the others contain 4. There's a few others that contain 6.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? No, then we have consensus to adopt the bylaw lifting part lot control for lands described as Block 6 on Plan 27M-83. Nobody's nodding no, so you have your direction.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. And then moving on to municipal contribution agreement with Eastern Ontario Regional Network Report 2020-07 and CAO Morris.
Thank you. That gave me enough time to get to the microphone. Back in June of 2018, the Eastern Ontario Regional Network folks came to this room and presented their plan to do a couple of things. One is to expand the regional expansion of the cell capacity in Eastern Ontario and to fill in gaps that we know are in the cellular system right now. And we've probably all experienced where you're moving along and your call drops because you're in a dead zone. So the purpose of this project is to provide cellular service to 98% of the population in Eastern Ontario. It's a large project. It's valued at $213 million. Eastern Ontario is big. There are a lot of trees and hills. So it's a big plan. So a month after that, in July, this council passed a resolution to support the program in principle, and the reason it was done in principle is at the time we didn't have all the municipal partners on board. At that time, the province had committed, bearing in mind it was the Liberals were in power at the time. The federal government had not committed, ostensibly because there was an election coming, and not all the municipal partners, and there are 23 of them, had come on board. So, in the intervening time, a couple of things have happened. We have a new provincial government. They have now committed their 71 million share of this project. The federal government has now committed their 71 million, and we have 22 of the 23 municipal partners on board. So everyone virtually is aligned, and the recommendation tonight is to formalize the partnership through a contribution agreement. And I would draw your attention to Schedule A. You'll see the levels of contribution from each of the partners. Ours is slightly more than the minimum. We were given a range back in 2018 between 54,000 and 82, I think it was. It came in on the low end because most of the municipal partners agreed to participate. So we have budgeted for this. We are assuming we'll do it over 4 years. There is an option to commit the full amount up front and get interest payments on the declining balance. Probably makes sense if you're contributing $1 million. From staff's point of view, it doesn't make sense if you're contributing $55,000, especially given that our first commitment, if council agrees with this, would come from the 2019 budget. It was approved in the 2019 budget, and we have incorporated funds, approximately 17,000, I think. I'm sorry, 13,000 in 2020 for the 2020 payment. So perhaps I'll pause there and answer any questions.
Any other questions, concerns? I think everyone who is in business would be anxious to have the enhancements take place. Councillor McGuire.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an answer to this, but we've got 98% of the population covered. Do we know what percent of the geography? I just don't remember from the last time we presented.
Yeah, great question. I would refer to the presentation that the EORN folks gave, which is attached to my report, and there is a map. It's hard to see it, but it's on, I guess, slide number 3 of their presentation. It shows a map of Eastern Ontario. It looks like an eye chart from here, but I can certainly provide that to anyone that wishes to see it.
It appears to me that everything except Algonquin Park.
Again, I can get a more appropriate size and distribute that if you wish.
It's okay. I don't think the resolution of it would be, you know what I mean? It gives us an idea of what we're looking at.
And this would be in aid of people being out on the river doing water control and make sure that they can call somebody in terms of geography to make sure as much geography is covered as possible.
IoT.
Okay, so I see no questions and no concerns. This council is supportive of proceeding as recommended. Thank you. And now we have the last one, priority that was added after our in-camera regarding the town purchasing land. And as this is a little more complex, I'm going to ask the CAO to explain the purchase of land that council in camera has directed us to, is directing staff to proceed with.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So perhaps I'll start with a description of the property. It's a 10-acre parcel, fairly large piece of property that you can, if you're driving on Lombard Street, you can see it. It does not front on Lombard. It actually fronts on Ferreira Drive at the back. There's a beautiful woodlot at the back of the property, various vegetation at the front. The best reference point is it's across from what will be the new Starbucks at the Otis development. It's a vacant piece of property. There's some history to this property dating back to 2002. I won't go into detail, but I can tell you that It was purchased by Loblaw Properties, and they were required to develop the property in a certain amount of time, or the town had the option to purchase the property back. Clearly, that development did not occur, and council has provided staff with direction to purchase the property back, and clearly we'll need to develop a plan on what to do in terms of developing that prime piece of commercial property.
Any questions for CAO Morris? No, and so, thank you. That brings our agenda for this committee of the whole to an end, and we will restart with a council in shortly, but can I have a motion to adjourn committee of the whole by Councillor Dwyer, second by Councillor McGuire, all in favor? Thank you.
Okay, good. Oh, there he is. Good evening. Welcome to the special meeting of Smiths Falls Town Council for Monday, January 13th. I have one proclamation this evening. Alzheimer's Society Leonard leads Grenville Alzheimer Awareness Month, January 2020. I, Sean Panko, do hereby proclaim January as Alzheimer's Society Leonard leads Grenville Awareness Month in the town of Smiths Falls. Whereas an estimated 228,000 Ontarians are currently living with dementia, and women represent 64% of those living with dementia. And whereas Ontario's population ages, it's expected these numbers will rise to 255,000 people in 2020 and over 430,000 people by 2038. And whereas the Alzheimer's Society Leonard leads Grenville provides programs and services to all citizens of Leonard County. Whereas while dementia is most common among people over the age of 65, almost 7% of dementia diagnoses in Ontario are made in people between 40 and 65 years old. Now, therefore, I urge all citizens of our community to participate in the Alzheimer's Society Leonard Leads Grenville Awareness Month and help end stigma. And we're going to be fortunate, Robin Hall from the Alzheimer's Society will be here on January 27th to do a delegation regarding this. I also want to take a moment to remember the tragic event which happened January 8th, Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752, in which 176 people, including 57 Canadians, were killed. 138 of those 176 were en route to Canada as their final destination. So I think in respect to those who lost their lives, their families, their friends, and those who were forever impacted, if we can just please take a moment, have a moment of silence. Thank you. I'll ask for disclosure of monetary interest. We hear none. No delegations this evening. No adoption of minutes due to the nature of the meeting. Any reports this evening? Councillor Allen, anything?
No, I'll just do an announcement.
Okay. Councillor McKenna. No? Okay. We do have 4 bylaws. Our first bylaw is with Councillor Allen.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna, bylaw 10106, 2020, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a 4-party municipal contribution agreement be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor McKenna, bylaw 10106-2020. The bylaw to authorize execution of a 4-party municipal contribution agreement be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion? Councillor Allen?
Yes, this is an agreement that we have with the Eastern Ontario Regional Network, where municipalities are paying their fair share to make sure that our cellular service is good for the citizens of all of our municipalities.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Have third reading, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna, bylaw 10106, 2020, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a 4-party municipal contribution agreement be now read a third time, and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10106, 2020.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Allen, second by Councillor McKenna, bylaw 10106, 2020. That a bylaw to authorize execution of a four-party municipal contribution agreement being now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10106-2020. All in favor? Carried. Chris McGuire, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dwyer that a bylaw to authorize a community improvement plan funding agreement with Michelle Bately respecting the property located at 10 Beckwith Street South be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, second by Councillor Dwyer, bylaw 10107-2020, that a bylaw to authorize a community improvement plan funding agreement with Michelle Bately respecting the property located at 10 Beckwith Street South be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, Councillor McGuire?
This is for a new sign on the building and hanging out on the sidewalk at the business known as Michelle's Doorway to Splendor on Beckwith Street, and should be a good addition to the improvements that are happening down there.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I have third reading, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dwyer that a bylaw to authorize a community improvement plan funding agreement with Michelle Bately respecting the property located at 10 Beckwith Street South be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10,107-2020.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, second by Councillor Dwyer, bylaw 10107-2020, that a bylaw to authorize a community improvement plan funding agreement with Michelle Bately respecting the property located at 10 Beckwith Street South be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10107-2020. All in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Alford, you're up next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to adopt estimates of the sums required for municipal purposes for the year 2020 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor McKenna, bylaw 10108-2020, that a bylaw to adopt estimates of the sums required for municipal purposes for the year 2020 be received, read a first time, and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, Councillor Alford?
Yes, we're going to only do first and second reading tonight, Your Worship, and third reading will take place at a special council meeting on January 27th. This is the, well, we refer to it as, with some legalese, this is the budget for the town of Smiths Falls, and council is approving that 2020 budget as presented by our treasurer this evening. A great deal of work has gone in to get us to that, to get us to this point, and I think it is there. While there is no Smiths Falls rate increase levied by the municipality, there will be a slight increase to people's tax bills coming from assessment increase by MPAC. And in a week from now, we'll have our finances in order for the year 2020.
Any further discussion? Thank you. Well, third reading on the 27th. And Councillor Dwyer, you have our final bylaw.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McGuire, that a bylaw to lift part lot control respecting the lands known as Block 6 of Registered Plan 27M83 be received and read a first time and taken and read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor McGuire, bylaw 10109-2020, the bylaw to lift part lot control respecting the lands known as Block 6 of Registered Plan 27M-83 be received, read a first time, and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, Councillor Dwyer?
The purpose of the bylaw is to recognize the partitioning of a block of land for a set of townhomes in Ferrara Meadows, the purpose of which is to recognize each townhome on its own individual lot. We're lifting part lot control to recognize the party walls between those lots, which is why this wasn't done at the plan of subdivision. It doesn't happen until the surveyor can pin the foundation that's been poured. So at this point, the lands will now be able to transfer individually to new property owners, who we gladly welcome to town.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Third reading, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McGuire, a bylaw to lift part lot control respecting the lands known as Block 6 on Registered Plan 27M83 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10109-2020.
Thank you. Move to Councillor Dwyer, second by Councillor McGuire. Bylaw 10109-2020, that a bylaw to lift part lot control respecting the lands known as Block 6 of Registered Plan 27M-83, being now for the third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10109-2020. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, no miscellaneous motions, inquiries, or announcements. Councillor Allen, you had something to say?
Yes, when Downton Abbey, the new Downton Abbey came out, I had the pleasure of seeing it in Ottawa. I'm not going to be able to see it again, but it is coming to Station Theatre on January 17th and 18th, and for $10, it's the movie to see. Students are $5, and it's cash only. But it's great to support the theatre, and it's a movie worth going to, especially if you're a Downton Abbey lover.
Thank you. Any further announcements? No. Our motion for adjournment is with Councillor McKenna.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Allen that this council adjourn its proceedings at 7:08 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, seconded by Councillor Allen. Adjournment. This council adjourns proceedings at 7:08 p.m. and stands so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor? We're adjourned.